So
Yeah,
people
sure.
willy-nilly don't understand like, oh, I'll just throw my secret key in
Yeah, I
there.
was gonna say like you're talking about making secret key management easy, but I mean it seems easy for some people because they just throw it wherever, put it in the .env and leave it be.
Exactly.
The story of a hackathon project does not have to end at submission. That's why we're going behind the build with.
What's up? My name is Sergey. I am a software developer, primarily doing front end, but pretty much full stack. Currently working as a founding engineer at a company called Actual, where we help companies pay their invoices and send out invoices quicker.
Nice. Well, maybe we'll talk about invoices later, but not yet. We're going to talk about your project, Secret Agent, which I mean, I know the name is Secret Agent, but we want you to talk as openly about the openly about this project as possible. I really like it. I think it's like I mean, I'll get you to describe it a little bit for the people at home, but I've watched the demo, and I like these kind of developer tools almost to build agents, so kind of meta. We've been talking throughout the season of the show on people building agents, but also people helping other people build agents and tools around it. So maybe I guess a quick rundown of what Secret Agent is and like how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So Secret Agent is a secure secret management for crypto native AI agents. On top of that, you can kind of like monitor your agents. It simplifies your development quite a lot and gives the user who's deploying these agents kind of like a turn switch control for those agents. Um, how it came about was actually not a long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah,
I
no worries.
went
A medium
to
medium length story is
yeah,
good.
medium length story. I went to the ETH SF hackathon.
Okay.
I think it was around October
Yeah.
of 2024, and I actually met Theo, who is one of the founders of Domino. And if you go to secretagent.sh, you'll see a link to Domino at the bottom. And they do secret management for like Web 2 apps or just like in general.
Okay.
They simplify that experience. And we kind of chatted a little bit, but then this agentic hackathon came out, and I just sent him an email. I was like, "Hey, do you want to hack on something together?" I've done hackathons where I was a solo developer. I've done hackathons where I was in a bigger team. Um, so like picking the right team is always really
Tricky.
important to get started.
Yeah.
But it just felt like we were both from Canada. He also has a co-founder that's in Hamilton, which is nearby where I live. And yeah, kind of like things aligned, and they were really down to do it. And so we kind of looked at agentic Ethereum and figured that a lot of people will be building agents.
Yeah.
And I've tried. I actually was like early in Eliza OS, trying to deploy. Like I deployed a Twitter agent, and it worked, and it was like it's a great experience. But what I realized from like a developer experience, like you're just shoving secret keys into this bundle, and you're deploying
Right.
it, and you're kind of like I don't know. It felt like I'm sure the kind of the experience has probably gotten better at this point, and it's a little bit more secure. But for a lot of people, first of all, a lot of people are starting to do development these days that are non-technical.
Right.
Um, and I think a lot of these LLMs and vibe coding um, gets rid of people's understanding of like what security really means. And so
Yeah,
people
sure.
willy-nilly don't understand like, oh, I'll just throw my secret key in
Yeah, I
there.
was gonna say like you're talking about making secret key management easy, but I mean it seems easy for some people because they just throw it wherever, put it in the .env and leave it be.
Exactly. And then .env doesn't get ignored, and then it's on GitHub, and then it's in like the agent logs, and then you're like,
Exactly.
where did all my money go?
Yeah, yeah.
Or all my credits from OpenAI. And so we took a look at that, and we found a little pain point. And I think the important part was differentiating our project a little bit, because if everyone is going to be building agents, what is that one thing that will stand out? And like you said, it's kind of like the meta agent framework.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really important for us is hackathons are like obviously a lot of fun and learning, uh, but for me personally, it's about utility and like
Okay.
bridging the utility of like me learning something new and actually building something meaningful. I find really rewarding with hackathons,
Nice.
and obviously, we ended up becoming the Agentic Ethereum finalists, and I'm actually doing a demo today with the Coinbase developer platform on their Discord of Secret Agent.
Cool.
So it's kind of funny timing. But yeah, we thought it would be like a useful thing, even though it's not as fun and it's kind of like a little bit more boring, but it definitely was fun building it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
No, boring tech is much needed in a space like agents, I think, where people, to your point, are like running at the next thing at full speed without considering of any other thing other than building the thing. So I think that's really cool. And can you kind of like explain exactly how it works, Secret Agent, in terms of key management?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple of different layers to it. So we have the kind of front end dashboard, which a user gets, and that's where they kind of create their agents, which essentially is just a server wallet built with Privy. And what happens then is you fund that wallet, because what we wanted to do is give people, apart from managing the secrets, also an easy way to actually interact with things like OpenAI and like Google Gemini.
Yeah.
Where instead of having to go to those platforms and setting up a developer account, getting the API access key, and then putting it into your framework, you can actually use Secret Agent with like a pay-as-you-go model. So this agent that runs in the background will actually do the proxying of your calls, and then we will calculate how many tokens you use, and we'll kind of send you a bill at the end of the
Wow.
day.
So you're not talking about invoices now. You're going to send me an invoice.
Exactly. It won't even be an invoice. It'll just duck it from your server wallet.
Okay.
But the other part, which is like this low level HTTP proxy, where you can specify which API calls you want to proxy with like the domain whitelisting. Give it the API key, and then we have like an NPM package that will do the fetching and proxy it through that within the Secret Agent backend.
Okay.
So there's like the front end, there's an NPM package that you would install into something like an agent kit configuration, set your project ID with the server wallet that you created, and then kind of this magic happens where again, if there was somewhere that we can demo it.
Yeah, I will. I'll show you have a video, so I'll just like show a bit of that too.
Yeah. So the dashboard will have like
act out your demo as with your limbs and arms and everything.
real life stats over here, turn switch over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea was that once this agent is deployed, a lot of times what happens is like, oh, you want to change your API key or you want to reconfigure it, you have to actually redeploy it afterwards again, and that takes up a little bit of time. And so with Secret Agent, once it's there, you can actually like disable it without redeploying anything. And so if you start seeing that like, oh man, my OpenAI API is kind of like skyrocketing because the agent is doing something funky, instead of having to like pull it down or do whatever and then wait for that process, you can kind of just like with one button disable it and then it cuts it off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then like, I mean, given you said then you were early doing Eliza and stuff like that, but like, how did you sort of like spec out sort of these scenarios, whether the on-off switch kind of seems like, okay, people who even have never done work with agents are probably like, I need the on-off switch just to stop the madness. But like even like the proxies and stuff like that, like how did you kind of map out, these are like the features that I want to include in Secret Agent? Was that such as like learned experience, or like how did you kind of design that out?
I think part of it was learning, but most of it from that, I'm not actually that much of an idea guy. Like I have ideas in my head, but none of them actually make sense until I say them out loud. Or most of them I should probably not be saying out loud. And so there was a lot of like Theo and Phil, they're kind of in this secret management space, and they've done something similar in the past for Web 2. So I think for them, it was very easy to kind of understand the problem and figure out what like the most viable solution could be for that. But at first it started very simple. Like the way that we structured it was like, let's just make sure we can get like the simplest thing happening. Because I know a lot of times hackathons, because you have a little bit of time, people take some shortcuts somewhere and like will present something that's like kind of working or just a bunch of static data. For us, it was very important to kind of like make it work so that we were actually like proving something that's could be viable in the future. And so this low level HTTP proxy was kind of like the first step of like, can we take OpenAI API calls and just feed them through our system and then come out on the other side with the same response data that OpenAI would give, but from our proxy. And so once we figured that out, that was kind of like the basis of what the utility of this secret agent will be. The rest of these like turnkey solutions and all that kind of like came as we went. Is like, wouldn't it be cool if it also did that? So it was a lot of like back and forth exploratory work while we were building it out.
Nice. And I guess talking about the back and forth, like what were sort of things that maybe you initially had planned, maybe to include at least in this hackathon that like, well, that's not going to fit into scope, or it wasn't working, or was there anything like that where you just kind of had to pull back or pull away from the initial kind of project design?
Yeah, like I think we, yeah, but it's that collaborative work that the partners are also looking for to make sure that the developers are giving them as much feedback as they can instead of just like in their Discord being like, ah, fuck, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that like you can support them as much as they're supporting you with the prizes that they could be potentially giving out at the end of the hackathon? So
Nice. And I guess in terms of the what partners you use and tools you use, I know you mentioned Privy, the server wallets. Was there anything else that you used? Like, can I talk about maybe the tech stack? I know obviously the proxy to the OpenAI stuff, but how was all that in terms of using the partner tools and stuff?
absolutely. So I think again, this is something that's very important. Is sometimes there'll be like 10 to 15 partners all giving different prizes. Sometimes people will be like, I'll just do all of them.
All of them.
And like
All of them. And then
and then
they
it
get
becomes a
started.
partner soup. And again, I understand that from a perspective of like, let's increase our chances of winning broadly. But partners really want to see deep integration, and they really want to see you using their tech to like innovative or to the best of its abilities, rather than, oh, just like a check mark. Oh, I've included this because I installed this NPM package.
Yeah. Or
And
make
so,
one API call to your one service.
yeah. And so the
Which I
way
have a
that
bad habit of doing. I have like this one partner. I'm not going to name names, but I always integrate them because they have this like really sleek APIs just to get some like blockchain information, some data. And I
Hell
always
yeah.
do that. I never impress them enough.
they're like, this
It's
is
like the
it.
deep
Come on.
integration part. Yeah, I'm just like, well, I need it. Like it's like, oh, create a wallet API call, bam. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
never
And so
enough.
the way that I looked at it and I found pretty successful is like you usually have different tiers of partners. So like you'll have the major prizes, medium, and then smaller ones.
Yeah.
Pick one major one, because if you pick more than two of the major ones, like if they're giving you that much money, they really want to see you do something crazy with their tech.
Right.
And so you just might not have enough time, or like the project might stop making sense at that point. And so I think it was like CDP, so Coinbase Developer Platform, was one of the top prizes. Base, it made sense to like sometimes co-locate some partners. So like CDP and Base, they could have just
Easy.
been a Coinbase partner.
Yeah, could have been, but
So those two, obviously with wallet interaction, so Privy or Dynamic, like those are the ones that usually go for it. You don't really go for both, because then, oh, look at the sign in with
yeah, look at the
Dynamic.
drop down. It's this one and the drop down.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And then some of the things that are kind of like future work, or things that we wanted to like do in the future, was the obviously support for multiple networks. So like there was Base, but there was also Arbitrum. So maybe like tying that in the future. And then with secrets, obviously you can't talk about secrets without talking about like Lit Protocol, or
Yeah.
I think Nillian was doing secret management as well. So like having to integrate that as well. We wanted to, and was on our roadmap, but I think in terms of priorities, we wanted to make sure that it works first, and then making it kind of iterating and making it better in the future.
Yeah, I've seen Nillian definitely using that as one of their bigger use cases because they have all this, privacy tech and all of that. So I think that's interesting. I guess in terms of that list and whether you're actually continuing to build on this yourself. Like first, are you building on this more? And what is kind of the next step? And if not, what would be the next step if you're to kind of continue on?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, it's something that I definitely want to work on more, but time is limited, and there's only so much time you have to do this. So the team that like my partners and I were talking about it, and yeah, for now it's kind of like maintenance, but definitely see it being like a valid use case. And so I think for us revisiting it and seeing if we what that looks like, and
Yeah.
how much time and energy we want to put into it to make it more viable. Again, it's always great to get user feedback, and like if people are like, oh man, this is really sick, like, but this doesn't work, then obviously it encourages you to kind of start working on it as
Yeah,
well.
fix it. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's still pending, up in the air. What changes it? If yeah, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Yeah. I guess maybe just step back on like just the world of agents itself and kind of get your thoughts on how do you kind of envision people creating agents. So like some of the projects that we've talked about too on this show, they made the agent. So like as a developer, that's like kind of, if you will, IP. So they've done all the integrations and using the right plugins and building the right prompts. And then there's other tools out there like, oh, anyone can deploy agents, and like that's the big selling point. And I don't know if it's like, as a developer, if I were to like build an app today or an agent app, whether it's like, should I just enable more people to build agents in a good way, or if I should like build a highly specific agent that does really solve a huge problem. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, there seems to be a kind of a divide, but where do you sit on that? Like, is it more agents, like enabling users, even non-technical users, to build more agents, or is it like just building some really good agents and letting them use it as users?
It's a good question, because it goes a little bit even beyond like the agent framework. Like you have tools like Bolt and Lovable that can create websites, and now every person in the world can create a landing page. But there's a limit. There's like an upper limit of utility of those websites that a lot of people start hitting very early. And so with the agents, it's kind of similar, where yes, you can build an agent that's like just yapping on Twitter all the time.
Which
but
is
it actually...
there's so many. If we can we all agree just to stop doing that? That's all I want.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like a rat race where first you create this technology that actually empowers the agents, and then people are like, oh man, like we need to like have a way to scale this and make it easier for people to deploy agents. Because before it was like, if you're non-technical, you didn't have tools like Autonome where like you can just click a couple buttons in a UI and you have an agent deployed. You had to like pull the repo down, do the changes yourself, and like if you weren't technical. So it's like it's a never-ending cycle of like people building agents and then tooling for those agents, and then that tooling exacerbates, and then you start building more agents. I definitely think we need to slow down a little bit and just like reevaluate the actual utility of these agents, and making sure that we're building the right things and not just like more noise in the world. And like now it's all about MCPs and all that.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but MCP is like USB-C. I can explain this to you in 5 minutes or less.
I got one of those. Like you'll need a dongle for that in MCP now, because things won't be connecting properly. So
no, it's very interesting too. Like I mean, Web 2 I think hasn't, or like Web 2 AI. The word protocol, I feel like hasn't been openly used as, I mean, like, everything's a protocol. Oh, what's your protocol? But now, like with agents, it's like everyone's trying to build an agentic protocol to do these things. And I think this is so interesting because we have this big debate about, the infrastructure versus apps and all of this stuff. And now it's like everyone's still building agent infrastructure. And I wonder if that's going to affect, the type of apps we're building, or if it's just like going to just all be a wash. And
yeah, I think we got to a point where things got way too out of hand, and like people were going in so many different directions. And so standards are really good. Like the web is built on standards, and it's very important to keep those in check, because you'll get things like when it starts deviating from the standard, but it becomes a hot new thing, people start using it, but then you can't really like plug it and play with other things. So you've seen that with frameworks like Next.js and a bunch of other ones, where like you deviate from a standard, people start like reaching the limit and then being like, well, I actually want to get it back closer to the standards. And so I think these MCPs obviously is just another way to standardize how agents and other tools are talking to each other. Because again, as a developer, the beauty of it is that you can build it in 1,000 different ways. But that's also kind of like a double-edged sword, where things stop playing nicely with each other if you don't figure out what the like underlying infrastructure should look like. And so and there's also competing of like, since this space is so hot, I think it's like people are competing on making new standards. Absolutely, because like, you want it's like the whenever we had a bunch of L1s and like everybody became a blockchain, and everybody wanted to kind of capture the core user base, but I think the beauty of it becomes then like now we have a bridging system where it doesn't really matter what chain you're on. The infrastructure under the hood helps people do the right things meaningfully rather than like, man, how do I switch? How do I bridge and all that kind of stuff. So I think
Yeah.
we're getting there with agents as well, where collaborative like these like multimodal flows will become interesting, but also very, very valuable.
Cool. So I guess to end it off, what's next for you? You doing another? I obviously have a day job, as you mentioned, but are you doing any other hackathons? Are you going to build more in the agent space, or what's kind of your plans on building in this world?
Man, yeah, the plan like if I could take all my plans, it would be 20 different things that I'm building.
Yeah.
But definitely need to stay vigilant and make sure that I'm building the right things. And so yeah, focusing on my obviously role as a founding engineer, but also have some things on the side. I'm building like I'm trying to solve my own problems.
That's good. I heard that was a good way.
Yeah, I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
And so one of them is this tool called Weight Coach, which essentially helps me like plan my meals better and do my grocery shopping and just like have like a CRM for my kitchen, essentially.
Oh, wow.
So stay tuned
Kitchen
for
as a
that.
service.
Exactly. The other one is a to-do list app that's in my terminal because as a developer, the only thing that I always have running is my terminal. And so I always get lost with my like to-do list apps on my phone, on my Mac, and like what I write down. So I want to bring it all to a place where it's always there for me. And yeah, just exploring hackathons I'm always intrigued by them. And so we'll see what comes next. And if it makes sense, definitely we'll be hacking some more.
Nice. Well, I wish you best of luck with all those 20 projects. Sound very interesting. And yeah, hopefully see more Secret Agent if, the community wants more. I think it's a great utility in terms of security. But as we talked about at the top, some people were just like, full speed ahead. We'll talk about security later. But hopefully this will bring people back down to earth and realize that security is something
if you're
to
using
consider.
Secret Agent, let us know, comment wherever. And yeah.
Cool. Thanks for the chat, Sergey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.